He literally hits Batman with a cream pie. Could be anything, but it's just a cream pie.
Hey there, Toonami faithful, and welcome back aboard Toonami Absolution, where we talk about the shows that made us us and the shows that made you you. Once again, we are your hosts. My name is Alex.
I'm Sam.
And I'm John, and we're starting a new Western cartoon block with Batman the Animated Series. And we're starting with On Leather Wings, debuted September 6th, 1992, and Christmas with the Joker, November 13th, 1992, because Christmas comes earlier every year. Some people are probably going to comment on why these two episodes. So, Batman the Animated Series is weird. We're going to be going through in production order, which is basically the same as the DVD order. Now, Batman the Animated Series was made from the ground up to be a syndication show, e.g. shipped out to loads of networks. So their first season is 65 episodes, basically what you need to be syndicated. However, this causes problems with broadcast order, because one, there's a lot of different broadcast orders depending which network you want to consider the first one. And they shifted a load of the episode orders later on to capitalize on Batman Returns. This is why you end up with the first aired episode is a Catwoman episode to pull people in. But this is weird because if you do the broadcast order, you end up with all the two-parters are split up. You get situations where, like this, Christmas with the Joker, for instance, is the first episode Mark Hamill plays the Joker. Yeah. We would not get that first episode until episode 50-something if we did this in airing order. So it just makes way more sense to start with his first performance and go from there. And On Leather Wings is a much more interesting. Is the pilot? It's effectively a pilot episode. So yeah, that's why we're doing the production order. Complain to the usual address, which is not my address.
Yeah, or mine.
Yeah, or mine.
Put it in your nearest bat cave.
Yeah.
Put it in your nearest bat cave. It sounds very rude.
Put it in your nearest Commissioner Gordon. But yeah, On Leather Wings is a really fun. It's basically a pilot episode. It's Batman versus Man Bat.
Yeah, I'm always surprised how much of the mythos for the show the first episode establishes. Not just Batman and Alfred, but we get a Harvey Dent appearance. And he's got the coin. Like there's quite a bit of I always found it fascinating how much they bring into it. And yeah, it is fascinating that Man Bat of all villains is our opener.
Well, there is a specific reason for this. Bruce Timm basically says that Man Bat was chosen specifically because he wasn't familiar to many people outside of comics. Nobody had any preconceived notions about him. It wasn't like the Joker where you had to deal with people expecting him to be Jack Nicholson or Cesar Romero. And building on that, Tim describes this as the quintessential episode of Batman the Animated Series. It's got everything in it you want. The mood, the mystery, and Batman's really cool.
He's pretty sweet.
Yeah, this episode does a great job of laying out that stall of what this Batman is.
Yeah. Alex, you actually got to meet Kevin Conroy.
I did. I got to meet him twice at New York, both times at New York Comic Con. And he was everything you'd want him to be in real life. Like we've talked about other Batman movies in this mythos, and we've talked about Kevin Conroy before, but like that's our generation's Batman right there. Like that's the sound of his voice, to the point where, like, when I imagine Batman or I'm reading the comics, that's the voice I hear in my head is Kevin Conroy.
Yeah. He is so good in this. Like, he's straight out the gate, he's doing so well. One of my favourite moments in this episode, actually, is so the plot is Man Bat is terrorizing the city. Batman goes investigating. He finds out that it's actually a guy called Kirk Langstrom, who is a scientist who works with bats, has turned himself into man. Classic 50s monster movie kind of thing. There's a moment where Batman sort of try and work out what's going on. He goes as Bruce Wayne to the zoo, gives Langstrom's lab something to analyse. And Langstrom calls when he's in the Batcave, and you see Batman drop to Bruce. And it's not different voices, but it's different voice. Like, he's not putting on a voice for one of them, but there is such a change of tone and approach. It's so well done. And it's immediately, it's like, okay, it's not like later ones where it's like, oh, Bruce is just a mask. Here, Bruce is also a person. He's a mask, but he's developed.
I also this is also kind of a sticking this is a sticking point for me with most Batman performances, right? Is like after a certain point you have people doing these extreme vocal changes between Batman and Bruce Wayne. I'm looking at you, Nolan movies. That is kind of my biggest gripe with those films. But I like what Kevin Conroy does here because yeah, Bruce is in that like baritone kind of area, but it's like he goes into that baritone tenor when he's talking as Bruce Wayne, and then he goes into that more baritone bass when he's talking as Batman, and it's about the way he's enunciating himself. It's just good acting. It's just really good subtle acting for a kids cartoon.
One of my favorite little details there is in all the scene when he's as Batman, he's saying, "Oh yeah, so Doctor Langstrom, Doctor Langstrom." Then when Langstrom calls, he opens up with, "What's up, Doc?" Which
Yeah.
it's just such a perfect thing of Bruce. Like, oh yeah, no, Bruce is this playboy. He's going to make a dumb gag here. He's not going to call you your formal title. It really lays out the character so nicely. And I
And
love
it stays within the Warner Brothers family too.
does. I just love how just it's something we're going to come to a lot, but this performance of Batman has a lot of range in that he can show vulnerability, he can be funny. Like I love our first scene with Alfred is Alfred being like, he's like, oh, they suspect me. Oh, what? That wasn't you throwing people out of windows? No, I only throw butlers. And it's so like this is Bruce Wayne as a guy. Like this is he's so three dimensional. He has facets to his personality. He can be fun. He can be kind.
This is very much the like the Bronze Age Batman, like Denny O'Neil's Batman. Because Denny O'Neil basically reinvented this character during the Bronze Age, like really made Batman relevant again in a lot of ways that he hadn't been since the 1960s and since the end of the Silver Age, right? Like this is so informed by that, and it is my favorite Batman because I will say a lot of modern day Batman comics and modern day Batman media make Batman into not a person anymore. He's a guy in a bat suit with gadgets. And a lot of it's just about how cool and awesome and rad Batman is. And I'm really glad when we move away from Frank Miller interpretations of Batman and we stick with that Denny O'Neil side to it because Frank Miller is a crazy person, but also just like it's not interesting anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of, I think everybody took the wrong lessons from The Dark Knight Returns in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I like,
Especially Frank Miller.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. And I like The Dark Knight Returns, and, I've gotten to interview Frank a couple times. I think that's kind of the reason why I like Scott Snyder's take on the character, because it kind of gets back to a more well-rounded Batman that we see here. Also, with this show, my own kind of personal connection with it is I remember, running home after school every day to watch Batman the Animated Series on Fox Kids because it aired in the afternoons. It wasn't Saturday mornings, I don't think, until like Batman Superman Adventures.
Yeah.
Um, so I remember like, I don't remember seeing On Leather Wings. I didn't watch it from Jump, but I do remember seeing Christmas with the Joker. I remember seeing that when that aired. Um, and yeah, this was a great. I was already familiar with like the Tim Burton stuff and of course, the Adam West stuff. But for me, this really does kind of define what Batman is. I love Shirley Walker's kind of rearrangement of the Danny Elfman theme for the show. The opening title sequence alone which they recreate for Lego Batman, the Lego Batman that just came out. Fantastic. It's all just iconic.
It's so great in every single way. Like, I think one thing I really like, and we'll get into sort of more as we go forward, is how this show is clearly inspired by previous Batman stuff. Like we see nods to Adam West, we see nods to the sort of Burton movies, but it never feels trapped within them. It's always able to do its own stuff in this very natural, flowing way. To the point, it works in itself. It's a very confident show. That's what I always kind of like about it. There's something here that's like, we're performing this way. There's been other versions of it, but this is the way we're doing it, and we're going to stick to it. There's no kind of shyness about how it treats the character.
I don't know what it is about other takes on the character and I'm not saying there isn't good Batman cartoons after the animated series, but there is something, I don't know if it's nostalgia, but I think there is something kind of quintessentially missing about the storytelling with The Batman or Batman Brave and the Bold, which I really enjoy. Beware the Batman. Even the Amazon, Batman the Cape Crusader, there's something, even with Ed Brubaker and Greg Rucka on the writing staff and Bruce Timm, there's something in the sauce that doesn't quite hit the same.
You're right.
I
Like I agree with that 100%. It's weird. And maybe it is nostalgia. Maybe it's just that we grew up with it, but I feel the same way. Like it's very hard to find other Batman animated content that sucks you in so much.
I will say I 100% think part of it is that the people writing it weren't angry with the censors as much.
Yeah.
I think it's more that it's so much of animated series you'll see when we talk about production stuff. We're talking about a lot of this. There's a lot of production stuff. Is that the censors were constantly pushing back, and and their response was to push as far to that line as we can get. You'll note Batman bleeds in this first episode,
Yeah.
and that was they say very Alan Burnett, the producer's like, we had to fight for that. We pushed tooth and nail, and we had a quota of blood, and we used it here. This was our blood, and I think that's one of the cool things in animated series is it's. I'm not one of those people. It's a children's cartoon, but it's a children's cartoon that isn't bending down for its audience.
I mean,
It has a lot of faith in kids to get things.
WB is doing a lot of interesting stuff in this like early 90s period. Like you have Batman the animated series, and then you have stuff like Animaniacs, which was pushing a lot of boundaries there. You had Freakazoid, which was supposed to be the creeper, but became Freakazoid to be more funny. And it all kind of WB is just in a very interesting spot when it comes to censorship at this point in the 90s. And I'm curious if that has to do with like Spielberg's involvement in other projects, or if it was just like just the time to start doing that.
I think it's a mix, right? Because you've got Spielberg executive producing Tiny Toon Adventures and Freakazoid, and Bruce Timm's working on Freakazoid as well. And depending on who you ask, inspired or ripping off Madman by Mike Allred. The Also, John, was this ever intended for prime time?
I believe there were bits of it that were intended for prime time. It had a lot of shifting over the years.
Yeah, so I think that gives it some creative leeway too. It's not a Saturday morning cartoon, not initially. It aired on Saturday mornings, but yeah, not first run.
I think it's also because they're also playing very much into Batman Returns, and the controversy from Batman Returns is in a weird position at this point in time, where the coloring book and Burger King toys got them all sorts of hell
You know,
from the censors, but at the same time, kids really liked it.
I still like it.
It's great. It's a really good
Great.
film, and I think it's just there's I think it's at a point in the 90s where we sort of I always joke sort of grunge has become mainstream a little bit, and we're having this kind of idea that we can be a bit more. Leave It to Beaver's dead. We can be a bit more edgy.
Well, and that's the thing with 90s cartoons. Like you had the edgier stuff like Ren and Stimpy and Rocko's Modern Life and Our Real Monsters that were kind of all the cable TV and Nickelodeon stuff that were kind of pushing it in that direction. But what I also love is that there was also like a clear part of pop culture in the 90s that was like, weren't the 40s awesome? Because you kind of get that like Art Deco very much with this, Superman in the animated series. Um, a lot of Art Deco, I mean, the movies like Phantom, Rocketeer, all The Shadow. God, that movie sucks.
The Shadow knows.
Uh,
Um,
how did they fuck that up?
yeah, well, first off, you cast Alec Baldwin as the Shadow.
Oof,
That's true.
it's
That's a good way
rough.
to fuck something up.
The but also, what I love about all this is, it does tie into it is kind of a the Batman Returns movie tie-in that becomes its own thing. Jack Napier is the Joker for the first couple episodes before there's suddenly like identity unknown. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, but there's like we'll get to some of these episodes in this first volume. Which is like the first 28, but the where they're like they have Jack Napier listed as the Joker's identity, and it's like, ooh, I think we talked about it when we were covering Mask of the Phantasm months and months ago.
I I think the other thing to kind of remember too about Batman the animated series in particular is that other superhero cartoons did not look like this up to this point. Like X 90s X-Men is great. 90s X-Men is made very cheaply, and you can see it, like 90s Spider-Man, even going back into like the 80s, the 70s, and the 60s. Superhero cartoons tended to be kind of low budget. They didn't move very much, and they didn't look this good. What Paul Dini and Bruce Timm do with the way they do the designs is that they're slimmed down enough to make the animation work and to still know these characters. There's a real art to how this is designed and how this kind of elevated these primetime cartoons. Because again, like I love 90s X-Men, but when you put it next to Batman the Animated Series, it doesn't look as good.
And what I love is having it have this very distinct visual allows them to sort of very much strike out on their own. Stuff gets introduced when it needs to be introduced, but the technology is always a bit floaty. And what they do is a lot of this is for cheapness as well. Like you'll note that they have these dark shadows. They're not just moody; they mean we don't have to draw as many backgrounds. and it's done in that really clever way where yeah, this is when you hear them say, "Oh yeah, this is save money." You go, "Oh right," but they have so worked so well that you don't notice in the moment that this is not no, this is obviously a stylistic choice.
Is it true that most of this was drawn on black paper? I remember hearing that somewhere.
I believe so, but I've heard differing. At least some of the animators say it were. Some of the other animators disagree with how much. At least some bits were.
I heard a lot of the earlier episodes were to the point where they were like they're starting to run out of black paper. Like for animation purpose, like animation style, like cells. Um Also, in terms of Art Deco and influence, and just to, I guess, jump a bit to Christmas with the Joker, you can tell how much the Max Fleischer Superman inspired this. I mean, straight up, you've got an observatory that shoots lasers and you've got mechanical monsters who, while not big radio controlled things, are very much, the Nutcracker Joker robots. I actually, the one of the rarest games in my Super Nintendo collection is The Adventures of Batman and Robin.
That's
Yeah, at the
cool.
first boss fight.
Yeah, the first boss is like you're taking on the Joker Nutcracker statues, which is it's such a hard game. It's such a
It's clearly got the older rental wall there as well. Yeah.
yeah,
Wants you to get those quarters out, kiddo.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
as we move on to Christopher the Joker, then we have to bring up this is Mark Hamill's first performance as the Joker. It was originally going to be Tim Curry, but there's debates why Curry didn't go. Some say he was too scary. Curry himself actually denies that. He says he got bronchitis when performing.
Mm.
Hamill auditioned for this, and Hamill's kind of funny. Hamill credits the play Amadeus as for why he got this, because he kind of honed a kind of mad character there. If you're watching this along with us, there's one thing I want you to do, and that is Hamill talks a lot about laughter being the Joker's instrument. And Joker has different laughs depending on his emotion. He's not always laughing the same way. And keep track of that, because you'll know it often shows the Joker's emotions better than his dialogue does. Like, I love in this one when he gets cornered, he's like acting cocky, but it's a very frantic laugh, showing that, he's realizing that he's in a corner now. It's a really neat little trick.
Just like how this is kind of like the quintessential Batman, this is also kind of like for our generation specifically, this is kind of the quintessential Joker, to the point where again, like I hear Hamill's voice in my head when I think of this character. And it's crazy to think about that in the 90s, like people were kind of side-eyeing the idea of Mark Hamill being a voice actor in a lot of ways. But
Yeah, Wing Commander wasn't doing it.
Yeah.
Like it's so interesting, and especially because of the chemistry that Conroy and Hamill have as these two characters. And I think that is not just their amazing performance, but their chemistry together is what makes this duo feel so right.
Well, and I think a lot of that comes down to, the casting director for Batman the Animated Series and a lot of Warner Brothers cartoons of the era was Andrea Romano. And for not every time and not every actor, but for a lot of these performances, they're in the same booth together as opposed to recording in isolation, which kind of gives it a nice radio play kind of feel, I think.
Makes a difference.
Yeah.
I especially with like when you get to this episode has it quite nicely when when Batman and Robin talk about It's a Wonderful Life. They kind of bounce off and it's a very natural dialogue. It does feel like two old friends And
Yeah.
then like Robin is like slowly like sort of poking him a little bit, being kind of jokey in a friendly way. This Joker is perfect. It's a shame everyone took the wrong lesson from him because this
Yeah, I
Joker
mean,
is still comedy based.
yeah,
He's dangerous but funny, and that makes him infinitely scarier.
and I think one of the best things that illustrates that's in this episode, right? He literally hits Batman with a cream pie. Could be anything, but it's just a cream pie.
Just wants the
And
cream pie.
it also that's such a sort of tense moment, but it also gets around the problem we have now is that why didn't Batman just kill the Joker? Well, here there's still hints that there's a man under there. There is that hint that he can be, and we'll get this with Harley Quinn later on, the idea that this Joker isn't entirely got. He's not this kind of. He's not the Joker who laughs. This demonic entity from hell.
Yeah.
He's a dude, and that means he is redeemable in some way. And Batman is holding on to that hope that maybe one day he can redeem him.
That is also the thing with this particular animated series is that it goes out of its way to do something that a lot of other superhero stuff hadn't done up to that point in the animated versions. It makes all of the villains people. Because at the end of the day, the vast majority of Batman's villains are people with advanced degrees who have been screwed over by the system and thus are like fighting against it. And I think what this Batman does versus like your Frank Miller Batsmen and all that kind of thing is that this Batman sees and acknowledges the humanity in the people he's fighting. And that is so much more interesting than I'm just going to punch this doctor in the face because of the environmental terrorism. You know what I mean? It's more, there's more tension to that.
There's more motivation. Later this season we'll get that with Poison Ivy, for example. Two-Face, this really humanizes Two-Face. Alex has talked blue in the face about Mr. Freeze, and that's true. Because that is the modern origin of Mr. Freeze comes from this.
This is the only origin for Mr. Freeze.
Yeah. Like it's there is, and I think a lot of it, to kind of harp on the 1930s inspirations, this really is like this is a pulp comic come to life in animation, and I love that. I love when Batman kind of leans more into the pulpy roots. There's a time and place for the Silver Age wackiness. Again, I like Batman the Brave and the Bold, probably more than the next guy. But there's something about Batman when he embraces the pulp nature of it all that is just so much fun and sets him apart from any other, because none of the other pulp heroes um, ever quite endured. Like Dick Tracy didn't endure despite Warren Beatty's best attempts. Also came out in the 90s.
Warren Beatty's son went to my college. I met him and Annette Bening.
Oh, nice. Were they nice?
Annette was.
Good. 50%.
Good hit ratio.
Yeah. Hey, batting averages, that comes out okay. The just next time I would have brought up Ishtar just to twist the knife. The yeah, no, I always love that about Batman. And I remember, in the schoolyard singing the Joker song that kicks off Christmas with the Joker.
I love the fact
Yeah.
Joker starts off with it's such a nice nod, and again, it's that idea of Joker being this comedic psychopath in a way that makes him weirdly threatening.
Do you think Mark Hamill would have put on the kind of affectation he does on the Joker's voice? Do you think he got that idea from Tim Curry?
I don't know if he ever heard Tim Curry's performance.
Because it does sound Curry-esque, doesn't it?
It does, but I also do wonder if that's. To be fair, I think Hamill and Curry have performed together a few times, so I
have.
wouldn't be surprised because theatre guys.
And Tim Curry was doing a lot of stuff on Nickelodeon at this point too. Like he was in All Real Monsters. He was all
Planet.
over the place.
Yeah. Wild Thornberries comes a little later, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's right around, also a Nickelodeon show.
Tim Curry was just all over the place in voice acting around this time period. I think he was in Captain Planet a couple times.
I said Captain Planet.
Oh, I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
It's fine. The one time I got an American cartoon right.
I'm sorry. Ted Turner is mad at me now.
Oh no, not any.
Mad at you.
From beyond the grave.
Not anymore. He's not. While we're on the topic of things but getting under the radar, this Christmas with the Joker is interesting. This was the only episode written by Paul Dini's friend Ed Gordeski.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, according to Bruce Timm, Goreski's script was so nasty, standards and practices wouldn't approve it. So originally, when Joker said, "I have a family of my own, so I decided to steal one," it was going to be a regular family he had stolen. So it was
Oh.
going to be an actual hostage situation. And originally, Joker had made killer toys that were going to appear in people's stockings before Christmas, which explains why we go to the toy factory at the end and the doll bit. It's sort of a holdover from that old script. But yeah, standards and practices would not let it through.
That,
In a weird way, this kind of reminds me of City on the Edge of Forever in Star Trek, the original series. I don't know if you know this. Harlan Ellison wrote that episode. And they had to cut it to shreds with the from the original script. Like he gave Bones a heroin addiction. Like it was crazy for the 1960s.
well,
So
it was a crewman that was originally supposed to be executed on a planet for dealing narcotics in Starfleet. And yeah, Gene Roddenberry was like, "What the hell is this?"
Gene Roddenberry was like, absolutely not.
I mean, at the same point, you hired Harlan Ellison. What were you expecting?
Oh God, that dude would sue anybody for anything. He successfully sued, or he got the Orion to settle for the Terminator because he thought it was too close to his own ideas, and it's just like, just get out of here, Harlan Ellis.
Get out of here,
Well,
Harlan.
one thing standards and practices didn't notice in this episode. Did you notice the guy Joker salutes at the very start? Joker salutes another inmate. He's the split of Charles Manson.
Oh,
Oh,
Like
damn.
one nearly 1-to-1. I'm surprised no one caught that. But they
That's
specifically have
weird.
Joker salute him for no reason. It's because it's Manson.
That's very funny.
Again, I think that's part of why I like this show. It's so much. There is this hostile relationship between the writers and the censors, and the
oh.
writers are determined to get anything they can past.
This is a completely different Bruce Timm series, but it's in the same shared universe. Remember in Superman the Animated Series, Dan Turpin's funeral, where Stan Lee and the Fantastic Four show up?
Are just there. Yeah.
And in all the later reversions where they cut that scene to do a really tight zoom, so it's stretched to hell. I have the
Yeah.
stretched to hell version.
It is kind of wild. Like, we talk about cartoons a lot, and I think a lot about modern day cartoons and how very few of them are willing to play these games anymore, as opposed to back in the 90s when everybody was like, no, screw you. I'm going to do what I want. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in something way worse so that you will approve the thing that I really want, which apparently they did a ton on Animaniacs.
Oh yeah, very fair. There's one joke on Animaniacs that famously is terrible, and it's because it was the censor bait joke to get something else through. But turns out the day they sent it, the censor was off ill, and it was their secretary stamping the papers, and the secretary just didn't read them, so just
Is it the
stamped every.
fingerprints joke?
No, I don't think it is. I don't think they've ever said exactly which one it is, or maybe I missed that interview. But I know they for years they mentioned one joke that was like, "That's terrible," but it was there because we thought it was going to get cut, and it didn't get cut.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, one thing I think what really when I was thinking about this show caught me was a friend brought it up really nicely is that this Batman feels like a big brother.
Yeah.
In that he is very morally pure. He is still good, he's the good guy, but like a big brother, he is never afraid to sort of push you a little bit. Like
One,
and the whole show is like they're willing to show you something, darker things, harder things. Sure, the good guy's going to win, but good winning's a little bit hard sometimes.
one of the I always saw Batman, Bruce Wayne, and Dick Grayson's relationship as more of older brother, younger brother. And in the past several years, really the past decade or so in the comics, it's been like adoptive father son, which I always thought they were a little too close in age for them to have that dynamic. I always thought Dick does have an adoptive father. It's Alfred. That's the adoptive father. They just now it makes more sense with Tim Drake, Jason Todd to a degree.
To a
Um,
degree.
and of course, Damien is actually spawn of Bruce. But yeah.
Spawn of Bruce.
I think yeah, from his loins. And I think this episode kind of captures that dynamic to John's point that he does feel like a big brother to Dick.
On that, one thing that makes Christmas the Joker work is that early segment where Robin is like, "You've never seen a wonderful life. I'm gonna make you." Like Bruce doesn't pull rank there. He's like, "Okay, sure." Like Robin berates him into doing it, and they agree. And he has a good time. And what I like about that whole scene is that for once, Bruce is wrong. Animated series is always willing to show that Bruce is wrong. Like even that early episode, they're looking for the Joker. Bruce nearly stops the guy thinking he's a mugger when turns out he's just returning a package. Bruce acts like, this film, I won't like this film. Turns out he's wrong. He's flawed. He's a flawed person, and that's so nice in this world where Batman is a Jesus figure in a lot of modern comics.
I do that big brother little brother relationship. I do feel like is a kind of a holdover from the 1960s Batman, because that is very much the Burt Ward Adam West style of the relationship, and I think that that's kind of informed by that. If I had to take a big swing and a guess,
this volume we're gonna get my favorite episode of the animated series, which has Adam West. So we get that.
There he goes.
Yeah. So
But we are in final thoughts time, so let's hear it while I sneeze.
I mean, like I was saying, this really is the definitive Gesundheit, the definitive Batman for me. I think for an entire generation. I do think I would be very curious to have nieces and nephews, or maybe children. I haven't thought that far ahead.
In general.
The ones you picked up.
Yeah, and yeah, just like the ones I get from the fair. The and introducing them to see how timeless this is. I suspect it's timeless, but I'm also biased because I grew up with it. But yeah, I know it's good to be back and good to be covering a show that I grew up with quite fervently.
Yeah, as any millennial child with obscure relations to gender, I like Harley Quinn the normal amount, so I like this show the normal amount. But man, going back to it now, these first two episodes, it kind of hurts a little bit as someone who likes to write, because On Leather Wings is just so effortless at just setting out the stall. Like that doesn't feel like it was written. That feels like it just appeared one day. It's like it's so perfect, straight from the bat. They know the character. They know how to perceive him. They immediately sell you on everything you need to know. Give him a great mystery. Use all of the time. Same with Christmas with the Joker. It's such a nice Just in a few lines, Batman and Dick Grayson feel like these massive characters who have lived real lives for years. Joker feels like this person you could encounter. And yeah, we have a mystery, and every minute of that time is used to perfection. I'm going to be saying it a lot. Batman the Animated Series is great, and these really show just how strong it was from the out. I remember Beast Wars and how iffy those first episodes here. Here it's like, no, we know exactly what this show is, and we're going to give it from get-go.
Yeah, like it's Batman the Animated Series. Also, as a millennial with an ambiguous relationship to gender, it you can't underestimate how huge Batman the Animated Series was, not even just as a Batman cartoon, but what it was showing us and what it was kind of leading into. Like when you get Harley Quinn, like, and her relationship to Poison Ivy, that is supposed to be a romantic relationship. Like, you've never seen that before. Like, granted, they weren't allowed to go as far with it as they wanted to. You had to wait for a whole Steven universe before that was going to happen. But it's so, I know it's said over and over again by so many people about how very good Batman the Animated Series is. But if you even have a passing fancy for Batman, like, you have to watch it. It's kind of, in a weird way, it's kind of like Cowboy Bebop. It's hard to talk about how good it is because you just kind of have to know and you have to feel it in your bones. And before we wrap up, I do want to like have that little shout out, because getting to meet Kevin Conroy was a big deal for me the first two times. And I think about him, and I think about how gentle and how kind and how genuine of a person he was in real life. And he, like I said, he volunteered at soup kitchens after 9/11. That is who he was. He was a hero, not just the voice of one, but he was that kind of person. So I just wanted to take a little moment to have that little bit of reflection. But that does mean we have pulled into our final destination. That's right. It is time for us to disembark from Toonami Absolution. We want to thank you once again for joining us and talking about the shows that made us us and the shows that made you you. We have been your hosts. My name is Alyx.
I'm Sam.
And I'm John.
And we'll see you next time. No guns.
It's bat time.
It's bat time.
Same bad.
Dun, dun, dun. Same bad time, same bad channel.